What's going on, Fortnite fam? I'm Zeke, and earlier today I got to hang out with Balla TW. Together we broke down an exciting game that took place over the weekend in the FNCS. So let's dive in to this VoD review. What's going on, Fortnite fam? I'm hanging out with Balla TW. Balla, why don't you say hello?
Hey guys, Balla TW here. You guys might have heard my voice on some of the Fortnite World Cup casts, and we're heading now into the FN, the Fortnite Championship Series. It's a trios competition. We're going to be taking a look at one of the best games from this weekend that just occurred. Finals in EU. It's Gambit, Flexi, and Letwick, and then Secret Dementos, who had a first place placement throughout the weekend and a dominant performance. So we're going to be taking a look at one of those games, Zeke.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe for people that aren't familiar with VoD reviews, maybe just want to kind of break down what that is, because it's not quite a cast. It's a little bit different.
Yeah. VoD review is when we basically try to learn as much as we can by watching a replay back or a video on demand from somebody's stream or anything like that. We're going to be trying to get some insights on why these players do the things that they do and are they the best things possible, right? So Zeke and I are going to engage in a little bit of discussion on some things, like, for example, this split drop that's occurring right now, and try to come out with the answer that might be appropriate for us, or maybe we can try it in our own gameplay or understand why they do certain things that they do.
Right. We can already take a look. Letwick dropped split over Unlucky Landing. Let's take a look at where we know for a fact the Flexi, he landed over an old yonder yard. Let's see where Dementos is at.
Wow.
He's actually at the gas station. Dude, that's super split.
Yeah, that is one split that is, I have to say, very bold. They're each on almost different biomes here, right? Dementos in the desert. Then you have Letwick all the way in Lucky Landing. He's in right south of Fatal Fields. And then Flexi in the winter area. So I haven't seen a split quite this bold in quite some time. You're going to be able to get a lot of loot from it, though, because of the 3 different POIs that they're in. There's a lot of different chests and a lot of different opportunities, but risky, to say the least.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, this is trios, right? So if you are going to be as bold and make this split, that means you can't really back your teammates up, right? If any of these party members get into a fight in any means at all, they're alone. They're out. They're going to be left alone to dry. So I like that they are being this bold, right? Because like you kind of leaned in a little bit was the loot, right? You're going to have a way more access to loot, so much more. But then you kind of have to make your way back. Like, if we look back with Letwick, right? He's in the middle of the pack. He's at Lucky, so you've got Dementos to his right. Flexi's going to be to his left over at the old yonder yard. So if something happens, he's going to be the one that's going to be able to respond, either going right or left and trying to meet up with that teammate, while the ones on the outside are going to have a little bit further to regroup. But, I mean, coming off the bus, we didn't really see anyone else falling with them. So that's probably why they're trying to be this bold, right? They're like, well, we don't see any parties close. We could probably make this work. And if it works, it's going to work really well.
Yeah, that's the key, is the spotting of other opponents in the area, spotting whether you're being contested or not at a certain spot, and then making adjustments there. And here, clearly, either they had something going on in the last couple of games where they're noticing that people aren't favoring the south side of the map, or they realized just in this game that there was literally nobody gliding with them. So they made the call to take this split. And it's definitely going to pay off. If we take a look already, Flexi's loot. I know that Letwick just found a launch pad. Their goal right now is to be trying to increase their loadout, right? You have the combat shotgun, you have the heavy AR, you have the silenced SMG. You're trying to find heals and mobility and all sorts of utility too. So with this split, they give themselves the most opportunity based on what they saw early on to get as much loot as possible towards the mid game and the end game.
Oh, I like this. So right out the gate, because of the split, they're rewarded with that Storm Scout. Like, that's huge, right? Because now, once they regroup, Dementos can literally tell them, like, look, I know where the storm is. We can rotate accordingly. We can make these decisions. So he's even going as far as to rotate over to Pueblo, which is pretty insane to me, all things considered. Like, he might have information and seeing, like, oh, maybe I saw a team drop there. Maybe I didn't, but just to go in alone, dude, that's so brave. These guys are nuts.
Yeah, but at the same time, again, remember, what we talked about. He saw that nobody was dropping towards the south side of the map, and then what he does is he goes up that mountain to spot, is there anybody in the city right here, in this little town? Is there any loot taken already? And we see there's tons of ground loot. Obviously, we get a little bit more information in the replay mode. We can just look at the mini map in the bottom right to see there's nobody here, but he doesn't get that information. He does know now because there's no loot taken from the city. There's no chest taken. There's a bunch of floor loot on the ground that nobody came here. He has plenty of time to work with. And then Zeke, the other discovery here when we switched over to Dementos and he has that Storm Scout is they actually got zone. So moving over here is actually in the time constraints that the zone does push you, and the storm is covering everywhere that they are, both Lucky Landing and Yonder Yards, and right here, Pueblo.
Full on chug splashes. Let's go over to Letwick. I want to see what he's kind of doing. Because remember, he's a Lucky. Interesting. So I'm assuming, is this Flexi? That is Flexi. Okay. That scared me for just a moment. I was like, there's a team rolling up. It's all good. So like we said, right, you know, in him leaving, he's going to have a chug splash left over, which is fine. But look at this, a half shield, 3 minis. Loadout, aside from that, it's fine. It's enough to take these early mid-game fights. But you know they want to try and upgrade as much as possible. But now look, you've got him. You've got Letwick, who now making his way over. He's on the drift board here. So he's going to get himself there quick. And that's it, man. Like, now they've got this really strong positioning. And they have whatever loot that Dementos decides to leave behind, right? So he doesn't need another gray AR. So there's one there. Oh, I thought he had maybe saw a play there for just a moment. It's wrong. But yeah, this is... I like this a lot. And again, the only reason they were able to make this play in the first place was because they had information, right? They're like, we don't see anyone else going. And like you kind of pointed out, Dementos took to the hill early, right? If he just walked into Pueblo, there very well could have been a team there, but in him taking up on that hill to the left, he was like, okay, I can look inside. The most obvious loot spots are unlooted. No one's here. There's no way.
Yeah, all the loot on top of the balconies and so on. That hill just actually works in all stages of the games, right? If you need to get vision on what your rotate path needs to be, whether your loot path is clear going forward, hopping up on high ground and taking a vantage point where you can see if you need to, right? You see somebody is there and you can duck back down, or you can delay the team long enough that your team can then also take the high ground and that team will not want to engage you. So smart play from Dementos. They've got the Storm Scout. They're already actually, if we took a look at the Storm Scout readout, they're already in the second zone.
Yeah.
And they're just finding more loot left and right. He's actually deciding whether he wants to take the time to go down there rather than farm up. Look at his materials, Zeke. He's already almost maxed out on all 3 types.
Dude, I can't even imagine how confident they must have felt in this game at this moment, right? Like, you get the split drop. It's super successful. It doesn't look like anyone else is close. You find the Storm Scout. You find that you're in the next zone as well. So you have so much more time, right? Because, like, if the storm had gone away, right? So if it had gone northward, for example, like, they would have actually had to try and make a rotation, right? There would have been a little bit of pressure applied. They would have had to be like, okay, well, where do we want to go from here? Did we see another team? Speaking of another team, Balla.
Yeah.
So this is what I want to go look at right now. Letwick, he's up on the hill. You saw him. He's building like crazy, and he was the one that was actually spotted this team out first, because the other two kind of joined him up here. But yeah, I mean, he was very quick to identify, yo, there's another team. Another team. And look, Flexi's like, I'll watch. I got it. No problem.
The thing that's interesting here is not only were they with the Storm Scout, they're actually trading so that everybody could see exactly where it was on top of just marking it out. And then, like you said, Letwick spotting out the team. The thing that he immediately does, they're trying to decide which mountain they need to be on. But because the team does start encroaching, they don't want to move up forward. They're going to take center zone in the second zone, which is something that the Storm Scout gives them the benefit of. But what they do is they build up on the high ground. They build full brick. They waste a lot of brick because they know they can just go back down into Pueblo and farm out the walls and stay max brick, even if they go back up into their big base up on the mountain.
And that's like not even necessarily like a waste of brick, right? Because in them building that, they're kind of planting their flag, right? They're saying, look, if any other team is close, you know exactly where we're going to be at. A nice 81, by the way. But they're basically telling everyone, hey, look, we are here. Plus, that means that they can build themselves this fortress. They could go back in, continue farming exactly like you're saying, and then they've like not necessarily wasted anything. If anything, they've created a base, and that's given them opportunity to, if they need to disengage, they can all regroup there. You've got, I believe that's Flexi. No, I'm sorry, it's actually Letwick still up on the hill. I mean, his loadout's, not much better, but look, he's just sitting here building out the base, making sure once these guys can come up, him and his team will be nice and secure, and then he's going to be able to start poking his little head out with the cone trick there. This is pretty insane. Like, the level of thought that's kind of going into this. A lot of times in game, mid action, we're always hopping around and there's always something happening, but being able to kind of take a step back and look at what these players are actually doing and how they're really just like securing themselves a spot and just locking it down, like, that's crazy to me.
Yeah, and again, a lot of people would look at this and be like, okay, well, they got zone, so that's a little bit of luck in their favor. Oh, they got a storm scout, that's a little bit of luck in their favor. But when you think about how they played this early game, the only point that I would say is a little bit of luck in their favor is really how many people dropped in their area, but that might have been something that they studied themselves. But with all that being said, the storm scout is not a product of just, landing at a house and luckily getting it. No, look how much loot they covered. And then this position, again, is also not just a product of the split that they got. It's because they covered all of this ground and they controlled it. You can see already they're trying to control as much space as possible by taking the high ground so early on, taking a nice viable spot. They're going to be pushing teams away from them. Look, we're now in the second zone is about to close. We're approaching, the full-on mid-game where players are all going to want to base up and try to find the best position possible. And there is really only one team anywhere near them. There's barely anybody even in sniping range for them, which, is good and bad, but great for them because obviously no threat at all, no risk in their gameplay so far and just maximizing all their opportunities.
And look, Letwick even has the angle, right? He's got the angle on this other enemy team across the way. So he's letting his team know, and you can tell, right? Like, these guys are being very cautious on how they're moving. You've got, I believe that's Dementos, who's out and about, just, picking up a few extra things. I like that they're basically running into this mega structure that they've constructed. And it's almost like a little shopping market. They keep bringing in things on the bottom layer. You're going to see as soon as you edit there, there's going to be, like, loot there in front. You've got extra materials, things to swap out. Like, they're just continuing to, like, stockpile things, right? They even had the next zone, Balla. Oh, my God. Look. Yep. They're right on the edge of the next one.
And that's a perfect opportunity to highlight why center zone is so good when you approach the mid game. Why center zone is going to favor you in terms of position, right? You never know, except if you have a storm scout. You never know. The storm scout just gives us a better opportunity to teach this concept, right? You never know where the zone is going to close on you. You never know if it's going to go northeast, northwest, southeast, southwest, which corner, or if it's just going to stay in the center. But if you base up in the center of fourth zone, for example, or third zone like you are right now, you give yourself the biggest possibility to be in that next zone. I think there's a couple zones that really, if you are exactly center, there's no chance of you not getting the zone. All right, so this is completely exemplified here. As we know where the fourth zone is, it's in that northeast corner of this one, and they're still in zone on their high ground.
And you see all the teams. We can kind of see the mini map here. You've got all these teams already posting up, building themselves a little base. You've got the team back here that's probably the only team they're really worried about, just because, like, for the most part in this along this, like, line, you can kind of see everyone on the other side, right? Yeah. But it's like these guys are the ones that could provide a little bit of trouble. I mean, the whole time Letwick's been up here, right? He's been just gathering information, spotting out teams. You've got Flexi down here with Dementos. They're just trying to find little cheeky angles, right? Like, if you can spot a team and just drill and take away some of their shield, like, getting them to burn resources is, like, very vital, right? Because that's something that they won't have later on in the game. And if you can force them to use it now, it's gonna be huge. What are your thoughts on the minigun? Because you see Flexi's got one on him.
Oh, well, we'll see that come into play a lot throughout the FCS. I'm not sure if this game, we'll see if it comes into play, but it's something that's becoming more and more popular as time goes on, especially in this trios format. Because in solos, for example, you don't necessarily want the minigun because you want the rest of your items, but in trios you have other teammates who are covering for you, right? They have that spam weapon, they have the close range, they have the utility items, they have heals. Everybody can share in those. So we're seeing more and more minigun play. I think actually NA West was where Edgy just used the minigun every single game to gain high ground and gain actually do very precise high ground takes, which led them to win NA West. But here, see if Flexi uses it. They have tons of stockpile down below. You pointed it out earlier. Now they're using the grenades because, hey, why not? They're about to leave this base. You saw Dementos early on moving down to where Flexi and Letwick are moving right now because they had that extra stockpile of brick that they were using the entire time. They just moved slightly into zone. And now in that fourth zone is going to be where the corner is. It's like a team just flew on top of them and based up in metal, which isn't going to be the play because zone is going to... They could edge their way in from that high ground, but I like the position of Dementos, Flexi, and Letwick a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, if they wanted to be, like, insanely cheeky, they could just bust out the walls, right? If you just half wall all the way around, there's nothing to support the structure, it all collapses. But then you kind of have to worry about that team up top. Like, what do they have? How are they going to drop on you? Do you have the angle when they do come down? So it's just better to play for a late game. Wexy, whoa. He went for that supply drop that landed there. It looks like he might have taken a little bit of damage for it. Like, a little bit of punishment, but, like, to get a chug jug out of it, I feel like it's pretty worth, especially, like, what else could have come out of that. He didn't, I think it was a proximity launcher that was left behind, but it had that been like an RPG, a gold AR, really anything helpful, man, a second rocket launcher would have been, I'm sure they would have loved that, but they'll settle on the one for now.
I just love the control that they get. Flexi was able to do that without really, again, you said he got punished a little bit, but in reality, not much has been spent besides a little bit of wood for just going down there because they have so much control on all this space. They had this base early on. They haven't wasted many resources getting this base. And then now they're able to cover for a drop down on low ground. Nobody contested it at all except for a couple shots on the Flex and he heals right back up. Now they are trying to get some damage done. You talked about the damage earlier on. And how we talked also a little bit how it's related to Storm Surge. Storm Surge is active. And because of those tags that they got throughout the game, they're 11 above. They're also hunting for more elimination points too.
Yeah, right now, I mean, they're playing the waiting game, and that's smart, right? Like, they try to get a little cheeky there. You know, we saw some shots traded. Lewick had to kind of burn some of a single slurp there. But, I mean, you know, it helps out the team as well. You top off Flex, you give Dementos a little bit more shield, and yourself as well. But right now, like, they don't have enough information. I wonder if did they bring that Storm Scout with them? I don't think they did, right? I think they left it in the base that they walked away from, because now we look and they're kind of going back where they were. Don't forget, they had the base like right here, that mega structure that those enemies flew up on top of and built metal on top of. So they have something they could retreat to. But like, I don't think that's probably what they're thinking. They're probably going to change their mindset a little bit on how they want to backtrack some. Just based on, like, look at this density you can see on screen, like, and even here, there's still 1, 2, 3, 4 teams out here that are probably fighting. You've got all the teams funneling in around here.
Ooh.
Along this storm edge. Man, it is a packed zone.
It's packed. 51 players alive, 19 teams. The first point threshold in the trios and the FCS is 12 teams remaining. They're approaching that, but still, as of right now, everything is just try to get as many tags, try to set yourself up, and try to spend your economy wisely, right? You don't want to trade too much HP for not much gain, but you also do want to be spending some of these heals in exchange for possibly an elimination. That's why they're going so aggressively onto these players right here. They were trying earlier on too, because they have the heals to spare. They can trade out some damage there. They finally find actually two eliminations, Flexi and Letwick at the same time.
Like to see it. So all that did actually pay off, you know, just biding their time, because, you know, another thing we like to talk about is resources, right? Like, and looking, by the way, they still have the Storm Scout. You know, we started, Dementos had 300 rounds, 363, I think it was, like right around there. And he's only really burned about 100. That's not that bad for 2 eliminations, being able to kind of hold your ground and not being forced to move, because like they haven't built anything else, really. If anything, they've like just reinforced a few 1x1s. That's probably like the first wall I think I've seen built from Dementos. So just again, a testament to the control that you kind of touched on earlier.
Yeah, and they did pick up one more elimination there. As the moving zones start, the end game is now upon us, and we'll see how they play it. Of course, they have that Storm Scout still on Dementos. We'll see if he's going to be able to use that. And one thing you can see, they're all trying to find a spot. But those 3 eliminations there in that 5th zone are something that you don't see too much from all different teams. That's a kind of a period where you can't find those eliminations because everybody's playing so carefully, but these guys find 3. And when I was watching them throughout the weekend, they were consistently finding those eliminations. Now, the pathing begins. The crazy tunneling from everybody is starting. And who's in the lead? I believe Dementos is leading the pack for this team. You'll see trios have dedicated pathers. There's Dementos up in the lead. He passed so far ahead. He gets in the zone, and then everybody's feeding their materials towards them. And then the 2 players in the back try to take as many shots as possible. That's Letwick and Flexi.
I think that's so good too, right? Because like you want that dedicated person that you can kind of funnel resources into to kind of build you these like safe tunnels. Because like that in itself is a skill, right? Like you have to be able to kind of look around at the battlefield and kind of assess like, okay, I feel confident that I can build here or out this way, or you know, I can use this much of my resources and we're gonna be okay. Because you're either gonna overbuild and you've burned so many materials and those are vital going into late game, or you've underbuilt, and the moment that the lobby decides to turn on you because one guy took a shot your way, like you're just not gonna have enough structures. But Dementos, like he's just owning the entire space that he like encompasses, right? Like again, it's just more testament to their level of control. Like even this, right? They took a rocket, he didn't take any damage, right? Because of the amount of builds that he has, his awareness, like to have oh, they are going to get a little bit of chip damage here. From the stink, someone is going to push in. Man, Letwick has dropped low, but I believe he just traded out. Flexi did. Okay.
Yeah, they actually just wiped a full squad right there. Letwick and Flexi. Letwick's up to 4 eliminations right now. We saw him get the 2 earlier. And they're just actually, one thing to note is how it's going back through the Pueblo city that they were in earlier on. And they just wiped a full squad. They got him to drop down into them, and they... Because of that, look at Letwick's mats. He's at 150. He's back up to max. They can path on low ground for the rest of the game. We're already into the 8th circle. It's coming down to the last moments. As it exits Pueblo one more time, it came back in and out. There's another team dropping below. Can they find any more eliminations with the RPG? Possibly. I haven't even seen them use that aggressively yet up on to take high ground. Flexi picks up an elimination in the meantime. And he does pick up the finish onto the player who fell down below with the RPG.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, this is insane. Just being able to kind of break down what's happening and take a little bit of a deeper dive into kind of what's going on. Even just kind of looking through loadouts, you know, Dementos, he's been, like you said, that tunnel master, and he's still at 81 material. Like, that in itself is huge. Like, to have still well over halfway of your mats, like, you can see the breakdown here. Most of it is wood. Brick was mostly burned. Still has metal, though. Yeah, these guys are, you know, this is why they won this game. They even had 3 shockwaves across 2 people. Yeah,
it's not just efficiency on Dementos too, but also being able to pick up those eliminations. They call them impact eliminations, where you can find more and more loot to last you throughout the game. As Dementos, Letwick, all these guys are pretty much maxed out on metal. Here comes shockwaves up from Flexi. Dementos down on low ground. And the last moments, Flexi's actually down and out. He went up by himself. We'll see right now if this is going to end up finishing, because there's only 3 teams remaining. Dementos staying completely on low ground. Letwick is actually making a play up. And there it is. The game ends with a flawless win from these guys. The Gambit crew with Dementos as well joining them. Just unbelievable performance. The control throughout the entire game, and then the end game mastery. Being able to find those impact eliminations. Perfect pathing throughout. Good game here from these guys.
Well, that is it from Ball and Ice. We can't wait to see you guys going forward. Stay tuned for more action from FNCS Weekend number 2, and we'll see you guys on the Battle Bus.